What's up, guys? Satan Senpai. Let's talk about why most developers never get hired or they struggle extremely hard, and you're probably going through this, right? If you applied to, 50, 100, maybe even 200 jobs and never heard nothing back, let's kind of talk about it, right? So the big misconception is most people think the path is simple still nowadays, right? It's not 2022 anymore, it's 2026, right? People think they need to learn to code, build a couple projects, and get a job, right? That might have worked years ago. It doesn't work like that anymore, right? Things change. Companies are being more strict. So companies are not hiring people who have learned to code, right? They're hiring people who can solve real problems nowadays, right? So and most juniors just aren't there yet. So reason one is you don't stand out, right? Hiring managers seeing the same profiles over and over again. They're seeing the same projects, you know what I mean? Like to do apps, weather apps, basic CRUD applications, so like things that create, read, update, and delete. Same resumes, same wording, same everything, basically. If you put your resume next to 100 others, can I tell it's yours, basically? If the answer is no, you're invisible, right? So I think with this reason, number one is like you don't stand out, is people will come to stuff like Deep AI or Chat GPT and kind of just come in here. I just put generic software engineering resume template and it gave me a resume, right? So um, this isn't like anything great, right? This is not anything great, but this is what a lot of people use. It looks good, but this is not even a starting point anymore, in my opinion. You can kind of use this stuff like for like layout, you know what I mean, skills, objects, name, and stuff like that to kind of plug in your stuff. But I think like when it comes to, programming languages, like these big skill sets, um, you have to prioritize certain things because like having this many skill sets is pretty crazy. I used to do this for a long time, and then I just started putting things that are tailored to that specific job role. Um, Even, you know what I mean? You can kind of take your resume, plug it in here when you have it ready, and just say, yo, update my programming languages to match, whatever job that you're going to, right? So don't do this. Don't do this, right? Reason two, tutorial dependency. A huge problem. People can follow through tutorials but can't build stuff on their own, right? So they know what to type but not why they're typing it. They're not putting real thought process to the logic of what they're building. In a real job, nobody is saying click here or now create this file, right? There's very rare times that you're doing pair programming, sometimes, but not really. Um, and you're kind of expected to figure things out on your own as a software engineer. That was the first thing I learned when I was a junior developer. Um, but the big thing is if I asked you to build something from scratch, no tutorial, could you do it, right? Could you go start a whole idea, kind of spin up a whole new project or whatever language without falling, right? Um, following like these type of tutorials or you know what I mean, these projects, basically. I guess like these weather apps or whatever, the C sharp weather app, right? Like how many people have been through this doing this, right? These are 2 years old, 5K views, 30,000 views, 4 years old, right? So these things have been beaten and hampered down. 1 year, 98,000, right? Create a model web app using C sharp. 3 years old. These have been built and just destroyed over the past 6 to 10 years, right? These are great technologies, but these are not good projects to do anymore. Um, so the big thing is I feel like a lot of junior developers and even people just trying to learn how to code feel like following these is a way of progression, but it's not the same as like real skill, right? You're not the guy going and building the application, right? You're just the person following along. You're still stuck in college, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You're not becoming a real developer. You're a software developer, you do it for fun, you're learning it, but you're not really putting the skill set into place. So, reason three, um, I think most junior developers just have, once again, kind of going on this weak and unrealistic projects, right? Most projects don't prove anything to employers. I think that's a big thing. A basic CRUD app is executed, expected, not impressive, right? So most junior devs, we kind of almost expect you to be able to just do CRUD applications. Like that should be like the baseline almost when you're trying to get in. The bar has risen, right, over the past 6 years. It used to not be. You could show up with the weather app and call it a day. But like the bar is above that now. Like it used to be on the floor, below the floor to become a software engineer. We're 3, 4 feet high off the ground now. So this CRUD applications, it's not impressive anymore. These weather apps are not impressive anymore. Like I said, people have been doing this for years, right? Um, and there's no complexity to these these projects. Like there's no real things like I would have to sit here and like think about what you're explaining as you build out this application. It's not very complex. I think sometimes going in a designed complexity is pretty nice, just even if it's one little section of your application, right? If you just are hitting API calls and, doing CRUD operations, that's kind of like the baseline, right? Um, I think the big thing is like for these things, if you do want to build these applications, you can kind of incorporate like authentication. That's a big thing. There's no real error handling, so doing like real good actual error handling with like try catch, specific API return calls, like if it's bad, like a 500, 404, 403, those type of things, those code returns, handling those errors and other type of errors like null exception and those type of things. There's no scaling considerations typically in like junior developer applications, like at all, right? They just kind of come in, figure out what project they're going to follow along. They may get like a baseline of that project, but they add some onto it, but there's no real scaling considerations, and there's just no real world use case, right? Like there's no actual use for their projects. So like on a real term, software engineering is like nobody in a real job is building to do application, right? Like I can just go download that. Like there's a million of them, right? I could build it, but I'm not doing that, right? Um, I think the better way to do thing is build something messy, something real, something that actually has problems, and figuring those problems out. Um, so that's a good way to get away from those weak or unrealistic projects. Reason four, you don't understand real development as a junior dev, right? This is where you kind of stand out, right? Most junior developers are learning syntax, not systems, right? Like we need you to know systems, not just the syntax, not just how to code. It's coding is just the tool. It's one of the tools, but like the big thing is like the whole system is what people care about, right? Um, Real jobs are about systems, right? You should know how to code and do these things, but we need you to understand how a system can break and stuff like that, right? Um, you know, like like for example, like the systems like APIs and how they communicate, right? Databases and data flow, like that's certain things that people should know. Debugging issues, like how like if you have like bugs and going through and debugging all these problems, like as they go down like application to application, right? Because like an enterprise application like systems, you have multiple applications that typically one feeds to another application, and they do certain things, right? It's kind of how we decouple these things. We don't just build one giant application anymore. Um, Another thing for systems is like handling, like I said, handling failures. How to throw those exceptions, when to turn off a process. Like, if you have multiple threads running or multiple things doing in parallel, like how to shut down one of those failures and have the others still going, right? You don't want to just stop your application entirely doing those. Um, and that kind of leads to like background processes and messaging, right? Um, so like in real systems, things break, requests fail, services go down. So being able to handle those types of things, you like as a junior developer, most junior developers don't understand that, and that kind of I think is the big difference between a junior and mid level is like that knowledge of how to do that is kind of accumulated. So if you can get a grasp of that, you're kind of putting yourself, off that ground level expectation and raising to that 4 foot level off the ground expectation that most companies have in interviewers, right? Even for entry level, it's just how it is nowadays, right? So, you need to understand how everything connects, not just how to write a function, basically. It's kind of what I'm trying to say. Um, Reason number five, bad resume plus positioning, right? So even if you have skills, you might not be showing them correctly, right? Um, like I said, kind of going back to this, you know, chat GPT style resume is most resumes are, too generic, no impact, and no clarity, right? So like I think a good resume like in these kind of like bullet points is just going to show the impact. So here's kind of reducing load times by X%. This is a good way of impact. I think having this kind of more impact in more of these bullets is a good way to kind of set yourself past that a little bit, right? Um, you know, things are too generic. This is a perfect example. Implemented RESTful APIs to improve data integration. Okay, but like what kind of RESTful APIs, right? Like what data integration are we talking about? Like, are we talking about security? Are we doing like integrations to like Azure Key Vault service? Are we talking about those type of integrations? Are we, transferring like a PDF file and making it a JSON file and then sending that through a RESTful API? Like those types of things. Those are the things that you should be talking about, not just, RESTful APIs to improve data integration. Like these are just kind of, you know, you should know this. You should know that. That's just a basic generic thing, right? Optimize database queries, right? Reduce load. This is good, right? Reducing the load time by X. Optimize database queries. Okay, but how did you optimize it, right? Optimized stored procedure, highly used stored procedure, or something like that. Like those type of queries, super important, heavily used, right? So for example, I think like a bad resume also is, built web application using React, right? That's kind of weak, right? But something a little bit better is like designed and built the full stack application with authentication, API integration, and database design, right? Like that kind of says more specifically what you're saying. Um, but your resume should prove you can do the job, not just um, list of what you've touched. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where it kind of boils down to like these impacts that you're having, right? Now let's talk about what actually works, right? So like I said previously, build in some videos is build one or two, maybe even three real projects, right? Something with like authentication that's handling encryption and stuff like that, right? Like it could be, passwords, so you're using stuff like bcrypt, or you could just do like encryption of like SAML payloads and stuff like that. Or you could just do OAuth tokens, right? A project that handles database. So if you want to use like MySQL, um, MongoDB, or PostgreSQL, right? Like these are all really good databases to like utilize. It just depends on what application stack you're trying to use, right? If you want NoSQL, you're going to go with MongoDB. I think knowing both is good. Uh, if you're becoming a junior level developer, like you should know one of these pretty well. Um, that project is doing API calls, right? That's kind of just RESTful APIs or like GraphQL or even handling SOAP or all three. Um, like SOAP APIs, those are kind of old and on the way out, but you still see those like as a developer, right? And some people kind of want those sometimes if you look around, like those specifically SOAP API. You know what I mean? So it's just good to know because it's different than GraphQL and RESTful APIs. Um, let's see what else, and add some complexity to some like lane of your application. So two, for what actually works is focus on problem solving, right? Stop asking what tutorials should I follow, right? Like I love Free Code Camp. This is where I learned a lot of my stuff years ago. Um, you know, 11.5 million subs, like they're doing something, right? But if you're like doing more and more of these, right, on a day-to-day basis, you're just lying to yourself, right? You're only lying to yourself at the end of the day. You need to start asking what problems you can solve, right? Because if you're building that application, you can kind of just actually go into what application or what tutorial or what software documentation, or you can kind of go old school and go with like Stack Overflow, or what to ask ChatGPT, or you can go more into help figuring out those problems that you're trying to solve more, right? Don't rely on this too heavily. Kind of go through some documentation to stretch your wings as a developer to get that problem solving skill set. So, what actually works the third thing is learn how systems work, right? Even at a basic level, like I said, request, failures, data flow, right? Like those are like certain things that you should be able to always do, like handling those failures, why it's failing, how things can fail as far as like API calls, or you know um, where stuff falls off, how to handle certain requests, and just like those type of systems. Like that's a very important thing, like how the code's going down and being executed, and how certain things are being what services are being called, or those type of things. Being able to do that kind of system work is really super important, right? So the fourth thing for what actually works is be able to explain your work, right? If you can't explain the project, it doesn't matter. Like if you just went and followed along one of these application build outs or whatever, these projects that they're kind of letting you follow along, calculator or whatever, weather app, or basic credit application. If you can't explain what it's doing almost on a line to line basis, even though you're the person who wrote it, even if you did use something like ChatGPT or Cursor, if you can't explain what it's doing, you're proving to us as like an interviewer or a company, on a technical sense, that you can't even understand your own applications. Therefore, you won't be able to understand these larger enterprise, applications. So, to kind of close it out, is the truth is like most junior developers aren't getting hired because they're not job ready yet, basically, right? Like you guys are, we haven't gotten past the 2021, you know, COVID pandemic 2022 hiring boom, where things were super low. Everybody was getting hired, and we're facing the realities of that in 2026 and on for the foreseeable future. Is the bar is 4 or 5 feet off the ground now, right? It sucks, but it is what it is. These old ways of thinking and old advice that sometimes you'll be taking, um, it'll be 5 years old. You got to really take in new stuff and build yourself out, right? So, so I know that kind of sounds hard, but it's actually good news, because it means you can fix it, right? You know where you're falling down, where you like how to go about fixing it. I gave you some good advice on, where to aim your efforts at a little bit better, right? So you don't need to be perfect, right? You just need to be better than 90% doing the same thing, basically. Um, 90, got to be that top 10%. Got to be that top 15%. That doesn't mean get 3 internships and learn nothing from it. You can get no internship and still be an amazing developer, and people will notice that, right? Um, Let me think. What else did I want to talk about? So I think another thing is like I always kind of say in my other videos, is a lot of these people go like on LinkedIn. Here's my own LinkedIn, but like you'll just see, over 100 people clicked apply 1 week, and they go to these generic websites, right? And you can easy apply, you know, and go down. And like I said, this is basically the same thing as following those like tutorials, and you apply to all these jobs, right? You apply, 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 apply. Go to Indeed, cool. I'm gonna apply for AI trainer, staff software engineer, embedded software engineer, staff software engineer, application AI, senior front end, or whatever, right? You're going and you're applying to all these. This is just an example. You're going and applying to all these things. It's kind of like you're going to YouTube and building out all these weather applications and doing all these small Python coding things, right? You're not adding any complexity or real, actual, real effort to applying to jobs, right? Um, you're kind of just telling yourself, right, that these things are like actual progress. Like you're getting closer and closer because I have 10,000 applications out, right? Yeah, well, you wasted a whole bunch of time applying to 10,000, filling out your resume to all these things, to a bunch of things you're not qualified for, to a bunch of things, and a lot of these are fake, right? You can kind of tell some of these are fake. You're applying to all these dud things, but if you put actual effort into building out your resume, even if you have to use this to tailor your skill set to these specific jobs, like, JP Morgan Chase or something, right? Or actually going to JP Morgan Chase's website and applying for careers specifically on that, and tailoring your resume to that role, that will help you out a lot more. Just applying to five of those and putting in that effort and changing and downloading the PDF and putting it in, applying, going through and taking those rather than just apply, 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 apply. Putting in that extra effort, even though it's less, it's better for your time. Your time will be better off. That's another little thing that I definitely have seen myself do. Um, let's see. Trying to think what else. Another reason is a lot of junior developers don't involve themselves. So like here's Discord, right? Here's mine. It's just something that I'm building out, but basically, it's just somewhere where other devs hang out, right? Here's my Discord channel. Still building it out, but the programmers hang out, right? So go in here and just, you know, talking to real developers, right? A lot of these people may be students, they may be juniors, they may be foreign, they may be anything, and they have a lot more wide breadth of knowledge. One, they have a lot more skill sets than you probably have that they might be able to show you. You might be able to connect with other developers, or you might be able to, there might be like principal level engineers in here, right? Like you might be able to connect to these people to give you advice on how to get to that next step. And I just think it's not even really about the networking, right? It's about the mentorship, right? The mentorship and understanding and getting those things, that advice from people. Like if you are trying to become a junior developer, um, just finding other opinions, right? And running those opinions in your head. Like, um, and also, great place to learn just how to code, how to get ideas, how to figure certain things out. Here's like an English channel that I hang out in. It's got a programming club. Sometimes I just hang out in here, talk to people and stuff like that, right? It kind of stretches your understanding of development more, right? Sometimes just talking about it is good. Not just doing, but talking about it and understanding things that are beyond your knowledge. Like things that you may not have like wanted to look up, or things that project ideas and stuff like that to go back, or resume advice, right? Like these kind of hangout places, just a simple programming, Discord or whatever, chat room or whatever you guys use, doing those things or starting your own. Like I'm kind of starting my own as junk right now, and nobody's in here but me and some bots. But eventually, you know what I mean. I also suggest starting a YouTube channel. I think starting a YouTube channel is really good. You can talk about things that and you can kind of start building on things you know. I've gotten a lot more knowledge just off of 4 or 5 videos on what to teach, and how to think about it and how to apply what I think to that, right? I'm giving you my experience and my opinion. So doing that kind of helps you build as a developer, not just coding, but like how to talk about it, how to communicate these things. Doing that as someone who's a junior level engineer or becoming a junior developer, will help you out a lot. So um, yeah, that's just my opinion on, why you're failing, how to improve it some. how to actually be effective with your time in your job search, and how to be effective with your time in your understanding and learning of how to be an actual developer. Like get past that hobbyist or that student process into an actual professional making six figures, making $150,000 or whatever your goal was for money. So just let me know. If you have any other ideas of topics you want me to talk about, just leave a comment. Don't forget, subscribe. You know what I mean. All right, see you guys.